So my name is Beth. I'm here at level 2, and the other day I had an opportunity to work on, what's her name? Stephanie. She is hypermobile in all of her joints, and she was very afraid, and I was kind of afraid to actually work on her because I've never worked on anybody with that issue. But I kind of know how it felt because postpartum I was hypermobile in my hips for a few months, and it was very uncomfortable. And so I had to stabilize that, and I didn't really, I didn't quite know what I was, I just kind of got into it. Worked on some different arm holds to stabilize a little differently than you do with linking elbows. So
what were you actually doing? Rotator cuffs? Are you specifically talking about rotator cuff?
We were doing rotator cuff,
okay.
The new rotator cuff move. So instead of just linking elbows, I actually put my hand underneath and laid her arm here and linked on top. So I was holding both above and below her elbow, and her whole forearm was supported.
You did that because you thought that was more stable position?
She felt more stable there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So instead of hooking elbow to elbow, you were around the elbow.
Yeah, I was around the elbow.
Supporting it.
Yeah. Just,
which felt different to her on the shoulder joint.
Yeah. She felt very loose in her elbow.
That makes a big difference.
And
I'm sure she could then let go.
Yeah.
And feel safe.
She felt very supported. So that was the position that we began from, and we just kind of came upon that kind of together. Like we were messing with it, like, okay, this feels really good. And then as we got into the swing of it and we were moving out, I could feel how loosey-goosey her shoulder was.
So you're doing the level 2 rotator cuff swing.
Yeah. And I was just trying to go very slowly.
Scouring the joint.
Yeah.
Working deep into the capsule.
Yes. And I didn't really know what I was going to encounter.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to feel. And it just felt like a little lip. like a sand thing.
Like a little speed bump?
Yeah, like a little speed, but it's very small because she's extremely mobile. So
when you were going into internal or external or both?
So she's here, and we were actually moving towards her head, and that's where I was feeling that little bump. And so I was just very cautious, very slow, very supported. I wasn't giving her a lot of traction because she was afraid of too much traction, and I was afraid of too much traction. Because
she's hypermobile.
Yeah, so we were just scouring that little bump.
And did that hurt when you hit the bump? Or if you first bounced into it the first time, did she say that hurts? Or
no.
Was she aware of the little bump?
She felt it.
We
both felt it. We kind of locked eyes and we're like, oh, that's where it is.
And did she describe that as more of a stiffness or a block than a pain? Do you remember?
I don't think she actually even described it. We both just kind of said, there it is. And
it's a block.
Yeah, it's a block.
It's a place where the bone, the joint didn't want to go as readily.
Right.
It wasn't smooth.
It was not smooth.
Okay.
So that's what I just kind of focused on, moving through that.
Cool.
And
so
and
did
then
you
back down
keep
the other way.
riding the bump, or did you bounce into the bump, or did you try to push the bump away? Like, what was your approach?
It felt like a skip, like just a little over it. Just a little over it, just a little over it.
So if I had a bump in a
less.
piece of wood and I took sandpaper to it and I tried to sand it down, would that be a metaphor?
Yeah, kind of.
Sort of like that?
I would say
just
that
so
it's
our
just
listeners,
like
your colleagues can understand what you were trying to do, what you were thinking of.
Yeah,
okay.
So that
like
is kind of what I
out.
was feeling.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, or like how the wave will create a ridge in the sand. But the more waves you get, the smoother that ridge gets.
There you go. I like that better.
It gets.
Nice.
And that's kind of what it was feeling like as we were going through it. It was smoothing out and getting longer as we went through.
The stretch wave smoothed out the ripples on the sand.
Exactly.
Of the shoulder. And what was the result of that?
Afterward, she could not voluntarily dislocate her shoulder.
Right.
Which she could do.
It was stable.
It was stable.
And before, it was not stable.
Right. And the next morning, I checked in with her to see if she was still feeling good, feeling stable, feeling, not out there in her joint. And she is very excited. She said, "Oh, I put my jacket on." She's losing her caution with this because it's where it's supposed to be.
Fantastic.
Which made me happy because I feel like that was lucky for me.
Excellent. Well, that's the level 2 experience.
Yeah.
You this was a birth trauma. It was dislocated at birth. I actually interviewed Stephanie separately, so those who are listening, you can listen to the client perspective of this experience. This is the therapist, Beth, her perspective on it, and I just wanted to interview both of you because it's an issue where people say you're not supposed to stretch hypermobile joints, and it's wrong. Because it's the proper, appropriate dosing of the right amount of mobility and stretching in the right, correct directions of the joint capsule. Where they need it is where you can do the fascial stretch therapy, not where they don't need it. So we increase stability with fascial stretch therapy.
Awesome.
And that's, I think, is something new with people thinking stretching produces hypermobility and decreases stability. Well, it's just not true. That's,
the opposite happened with Stephanie.
Because we're not doing traditional stretching.
Yeah.
This is mobilization stretching. Well, thank you.
You're
Good
welcome.
job.
Thanks.
Till we meet again.